everyone, and welcome to the Babies in Common Show. I'm Jeanette.
And I'm Melissa. Welcome, listeners. Please note that any information shared during this show is not to be taken as medical advice. Please consult your own care providers for questions about you or your baby's health, and visit babiesincommon.com/disclaimer to read more.
Awesome. So today is Saturday, February 14th, 2021. Happy Galentine's Day, Melissa.
Happy Galentine's Day, Jeanette.
And our guest today is Caitlin Calonge.
Yes, Caitlin, or as her friends call her, Kate, grew up in Cambridge and Everett, Mass. She found out she was pregnant with her first baby the summer following high school graduation when she was 18 years old. She jokes that she has literally had almost every job in the world. She has worked as a waitress, bartender, in sales, as a public housing coordinator, as a personal trainer, and even started her own business called The Crunchy Home. But she really found her passion when she began working as a doula, birth educator, and home birth midwifery assistant after moving to South Florida.
Now back up in Massachusetts, she placed her doula career on hold as she pursues a nursing degree at Bunker Hill Community College, but she says she can't wait to get back into the birth world, and we would love to have her join us. She lives with her husband and 3 children, ages 13, 11, and 7, on the North Shore of Massachusetts. And Kate's going to talk with us today about navigating pregnancy and birth as a teenager because she herself was a teen mom. So welcome, Caitlin, and thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start with some statistics about teen pregnancy. According to the CDC, in 2017, a total of 195,000 babies were born to women aged 15 to 19 years, for a birth rate of about 19 per 1,000 women in that age group. That was another record low for U.S. teen birth and a drop of 7% from 2016. Although reasons for the declines are not totally clear, evidence suggests these declines are due to more teens abstaining from sexual activity and more teens who are sexually active using birth control than in previous years, which is not a surprise to anybody who cares and knows about reproductive health. Still, the U.S. teen pregnancy rate is substantially higher than in other Western industrialized nations, and racial, ethnic, and geographic disparities in teen birth rates do persist.
Also, in a 2008 editorial in the Journal of Perinatal Education entitled Prenatal Care, The Adolescent's Perspective, the authors write, adolescents who become pregnant are an extremely vulnerable group and therefore require special concern. Pregnant adolescents and their families are all likely to have fewer resources and supports than the average expectant person. They said woman, but I'm going to say person. Financial constraints, lack of health insurance, and language and cultural barriers are likely to create challenging barriers to care. Anyone focusing on the care of pregnant adolescents must study the cultural variables and become culturally competent to ensure positive outcomes for this population, from whatever culture they come from, right? So Caitlin, I'm glad we can hear about your firsthand experience as a pregnant person, pregnant teenager, and hear about your passion for working with and advocating for pregnant adolescents in your career as a doula and childbirth educator and future nurse.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent. So let's start from the beginning, which of course is a very good place to start. You found out you were pregnant with your first baby, your daughter, the summer after high school graduation. So was that part of your post-graduation plan?
Not at all. I was actually sworn into the Marine Corps, ready to leave for boot camp, and found out about a month before my ship date that I was pregnant.
There's still 9 months before this baby comes. What are we going to do?
Right. Can I still go to boot camp? That's really what I was thinking. Like, well, wait a minute. Like, I mean, I'm not that pregnant.
Right.
Can't I just do this still? And he was like, no, you cannot.
So how did you feel about being pregnant? Who did you confide in? How did your family take the news?
So I'm the oldest of 6 kids myself.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, I wasn't totally afraid of like having a baby or taking care of a baby. I kind of felt like that would just be second nature for me. My mom was pretty, I don't know if I would say like devastated. She was pretty sad, you know, that I had all these plans lined up and then, you know, I was pregnant. But she was also probably one of the most supportive people for me. Like she took me to all my doctor's appointments and stuff, and she was there for me a lot through my pregnancy. My siblings were like super pumped. They were all like, yes, we're gonna have a baby. So they were all excited. And my daughter's dad was not very excited. I actually didn't, I wasn't 100% sure who her dad was. Um, I was a teenager. It was the
Sure.
summer after high school, and
Mm.
we were like living like the summer after high school.
You were living La Vida
So,
Loca, which was
yeah,
probably the song that was,
right.
playing on the
Popular at the
radio.
time.
Probably, probably. Um, so it was a little crazy, that whole dynamic, but um I ended up actually meeting like a wonderful other supportive family out of it. So the potential baby daddy, I liked to call him, his mom was super awesome. He ended up not being my daughter's father, but his mom was like, I don't care if this is my grandbaby or not. Like,
Hmm.
I'm going to be here for you
Oh, wow.
and I'm going to help you in any way possible. And, if that's my blood, that's my blood. And if it's not, it's still my grandchild.
Hmm.
And to this day, is still like one of my number one supports in my life.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh, how
That's so
She's
sweet.
taken
special.
in like all of my kids, and she's just like awesome. So
Mm.
I got an amazing blessing out of that.
Hmm.
It just goes to
Yeah.
show you how powerful as a young person having, you know, support from a parental figure,
Mm.
whether or not that figure
Yeah.
is your own blood or not. Those types of relationships with your aunts or uncles or your mom or dad's best friend that you call aunt and uncle, like,
Yeah.
or even, just this amazing person in your life that was a parental figure for you. Like they can matter in many ways.
Mm.
Yeah.
And was the baby daddy ultimately also a teenager?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was.
So that was a lot to take for either one
Yeah.
of the potential guys.
What was your relationship like with these young men in your life? I know that, one of their mothers was
Yeah.
supportive. Your mother turned out to be very supportive, but were they supportive of you? Did they
Um
want to go to appointments? How did that like unfold?
so the one whose mother was very supportive, he was also very supportive. Um we kind of like decided we didn't want to be together, but he was very like honoring of the fact that like if you're having my kid, I'm going to be there for you.
Mm.
Um the biological dad was just kind of off and running and not I didn't talk to him really much at all.
Mm.
So he wasn't around. He didn't go to appointments with me or anything like that. I don't know if I ever invited him. Who knows? He maybe would have
Mm.
wanted to. He was there at the birth,
Oh,
so
okay.
and his mom was there.
But you didn't know
So
at that point that that was his baby?
no,
So were both of the guys there?
no, just him and his mom.
It just happened to be that the biological dad was there.
Oh no, the biological dad was not there. It was the one that turned out not to be
Oh,
the
oh,
dad was
okay.
there.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
with the
Wow.
very supportive mom who's now
Oh my
still like
gosh.
in my
Wow, what
life.
an experience for him. But
Yeah. Oh,
but
poor guy.
I
Now that I look
imagine he
back,
was
I'm like, oh my
sad.
gosh,
Yeah.
this poor like
Then he was probably
young
sad. It's
teenage
not my
kid and like going through this whole emotional thing and then finding out like I mean, I think too we focus a lot on the mom, right? And
Mhm.
on
Mm-hmm.
how the mom feels and this whole experience for her and
Right.
even being a teen mom, but we don't always focus on the dad or even like, okay, you weren't the dad.
Yeah.
So how do you feel now, you know?
Sure.
Wow. You
So
already have
that's
such a
kind of
fascinating
eye-opening, right?
story. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So how did you go about finding a prenatal care provider or place to give birth?
So I had an amazing pediatrician my whole life. She's actually my kiddo's pediatrician now and through Cambridge Health Alliance.
Hmm.
And I think I just told her I was pregnant and she just referred me to the closest OBGYN through Cambridge Health, um, which was in Revere because I was living in Everett at the time. I had a wonderful OBGYN. Her name was Dr. Chisholm. Um, I don't think she's there anymore. I think she switched and is somewhere on the North Shore actually. Um, but it was just kind of like a, this is where you go when you're pregnant and this is your doctor. So I didn't really do much looking or anything. I just got lucky and
Mhm.
met a great provider on the first try.
That
Not
is
that I
very
really
lucky.
knew to look either. I
Yeah,
probably
did
would
you
have.
know about the birth center?
So at that time, I did not. I didn't know about the birth center until my third baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which, for
Wow.
those of you that aren't from the area, there's a
Yeah.
hospital affiliated but freestanding birth center that is in partnership with Cambridge Hospital. So it's run by midwives. Um, and you are getting care from an OBGYN that delivered at Cambridge Hospital. But even though there was a birth center that was
Yeah.
affiliated with the hospital across the street, that wasn't something you knew about till your third baby. So that's
Right.
Oh,
very, I mean, I wonder if there was assumptions, which we often do with teens, which we shouldn't, that, they're not going to want an unmedicated birth, or they're not going to want to breastfeed, or all of these things that we assume about young people that aren't
Right.
necessarily true. When I worked in Syracuse, we took care of quite a lot of teenage families, teenage parents, and they were some of my most favorite parents. I mean, I feel like being a hot mess isn't relegated to any one age group.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There can be some, and certainly many teenage parents, not all, but many, have really complicated, maybe not the most supportive family dynamics as well, and social situations going on. But some of my most mature, compassionate, just amazing patients that I took care of were teen moms. And I think that speaks to also maybe a lot of these teens had to grow up a lot faster than maybe other people did. But there's a lot of assumptions, right? Like, don't
Yeah.
bother trying to get that baby to latch, because the second she walks out of here, she's just going to put a bottle. That's what they all do, quote unquote, and that
Yep.
always like bothered me to like, because I'm actually the daughter of a teen mom. My mom also got pregnant the summer after high school graduation
Okay.
with me.
Awesome.
I should be
So
interviewing you both then.
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, my mom breastfed all of us. She has four children herself. I'm the oldest of seven because when my mom and dad split, they all both went on to get remarried and have more children. But in my, nuclear family growing up, my mom had four babies and breastfed all of us. So she breastfed me when I was born when she was 19. My sister was born when she was
Hmm.
21. And, cloth diapered, because I asked her
Mm.
once, cloth diapering is definitely in vogue now in a
Mhm.
way, and we
Yeah.
have awesome types of cloth diapers with, Velcro and cute patterns. And back then it was the Gerber plastic pants with the pins. And I asked, like, how, Mom, you're kind of ahead of the game. Like, how come you cloth diapers? She goes, ahead of the game. She goes, Melissa, they didn't have really a lot of disposable options back then. This is a 1983. It's not that
Yeah.
long ago. I mean, it's only
Yeah.
37 years. She said, but disposables were so expensive. She's like, I couldn't
Mhm.
afford
Hmm.
that. She goes,
Mhm.
I breastfed partially because I knew that it was beneficial for you guys. And, she's like, I didn't feel like you guys were sick really as much as, some of my other friends' kids and whatnot. She said, but I was poor.
Yeah.
I was broke. I was working three jobs,
Mm.
She's like, so
Formula is
breastfeeding was
expensive.
inexpensive, so I think we don't give a lot of teen parents enough credit for that kind of stuff. So, but it is also the case, I in my experience, that many times teen parents just kind of go with the OBGYN that their mom had, or something like that. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily that they know enough to maybe do some searching. But that's also
Yeah.
kind of true for most people in general in this country, is kind of go with the person that's been prescribing their birth control pill. So not too
Right.
Yeah.
far off.
Did you have a desire for a certain type of birth? Did you take
Um,
classes? How did you prepare for your birth?
so I did, my mom actually went to the childbirth classes with me. They were
Nice.
at Cambridge Hospital.
Mhm.
The woman who taught them was actually my mom's labor and delivery nurse when she had like all six
What?
of us. So
Oh my
weird.
gosh.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that is so
crazy.
Wow.
cool.
But it was a great, like, kind of, I mean, I don't know. So I'm a little biased now because I have taught childbirth education on out of hospital birth and for natural birth, like geared towards different things. But for your general hospital free childbirth education, it was pretty good. Um, and I knew after attending that the one thing I did not want was a C-section.
Mm-hmm.
I was just terrified of it. Um, I don't know why exactly. I didn't really have any rational reasoning, but I was like, I do not want a C-section. I don't. And I knew I did not want an episiotomy. I was like,
Mm.
dear God, do not let them cut me open like anywhere. Like if there's a scalpel in that room, we're done. Like I don't want
I
to do
think both of
this.
those things are reasonable things to not want.
I think they're very
Yeah,
reasonable.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean now I feel the same way. If I ever had
Mhm.
any more kids, nope. But I didn't have a lot of reasoning then. I just felt that I didn't want that. I was okay and open to having an epidural and stuff. I think mostly because I was only told what birth was like from my family members, and they all told me how horrific it was. People still talk like that. And
Mm,
after all my birth experiences now, I'm like, no, 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 don't stop
mm,
with the fear mongering. Like, we are made to do this. Our bodies are actually built to give birth. Like your body is not broken.
yeah.
Um, so my easiest birth that I had was my third baby, who I don't know if it's just because she was my third baby, but
Mm.
I would attribute it more to the fact that I had been in really great shape for like, I actually started to have abs when I found out I was pregnant. She
Ooh, and you're
was
like,
not
darn it.
planned. I was like in the best shape of my life. And
Wow.
then I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Like, wow. And I worked out my whole pregnancy. I was actually
Good.
working as a personal trainer. So I taught boot camp
Oh,
classes.
nice.
My clients used to be like, stop lifting those weights because if your water breaks next to me, like I'm gonna die. And I literally worked up until like the day I had her. So,
Mm,
and she was my one unmedicated birth center birth, like,
mhm,
super fast, super easy.
mm,
I was just like, oh my gosh, there's a baby here? Like, how
yeah.
did that happen? So
And was that in Massachusetts or in Florida?
that was in Massachusetts. She
Oh, okay.
was at the birth center that's affiliated with Cambridge Hospital.
Oh, okay.
So you were getting care at Cambridge Hospital. You had an OB.
Mhm.
You had open-minded about pain meds. So how did it go?
So she was due on April 2nd. Um, and on April 5th, she wasn't here. So I went to my doctor's appointment and I was like, get her out. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Get her out. And she stripped my membranes. She's like, I don't know, if this is going to work. But then she kind of winked at me and told me that she was working tonight. And so maybe I should just come in just in case. And so I was like, hallelujah.
It's called a
So,
backdoor induction, folks.
yes. So she definitely was a
Proof that
little
it
backdoor.
happens.
Yep, backdoor induction right there. So I did go in. I started getting Pitocin, the whole 9 yards. Um, I think I got there around 5 p.m. She was born at 7:47 in the morning.
Wow.
So the labor was a little intense. As soon as that Pitocin kicked in, I was like, give me that epidural you said that you had here. Like, I want it now. I got the epidural. It was okay. It wasn't like, I managed. And then it came time to push, and I had a delivery room of my mom, my two sisters, the potential baby daddy, his mom, one of my brothers. So it was like a show in itself.
That is amazing.
Um,
I love that. I
we
love
had
that.
like, so the hospital was great because they were so accommodating. Like, if you want to have 10 people in the room, go
Yeah.
ahead, have 10 people in the room. Like, this
Yes.
is your birth, do what
Good.
you wish.
Perfect.
But it came time to push, and that was the hard part. I pushed for about 2.5 hours, and I remember them like shutting off the epidural. So all of a sudden, it was like, now's the hard part. right? And now you can feel everything.
Right.
So I probably wasn't
And that
pushing
wasn't a
very,
discussion.
no,
Hmm.
no.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was
Um,
pretty, I mean, I know it still happens, but that was pretty common practice back.
yeah,
Your
she was
daughter's like
born in
13 years old, right?
2007. Yeah.
Just shutting off the epidural was pretty common practice. That's how I was taught. And, when they get fully, shut off the epidural and then have them start pushing, and then the epidural slowly wears off. That's pretty barbaric. Like now, like
Mm-hmm.
looking back, I'm horrified that we did that, because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, turning down the epidural can be a tool in our toolbox if pushing's taking a while, and it can be a conversation with a patient so that, but if somebody has an epidural, they're not making the same amount of endorphins as they would. They're not in the same zone with the same comfort tools and whatnot as they would be if they didn't ever get that epidural. So to get someone comfortable with an epidural and then to turn it off without a discussion, a lot of people get really out of control because all of a sudden they're feeling
Yeah.
everything back at a level that's 10 times
Mm-hmm.
more than when they got the epidural. And then sometimes, they can't push effectively, and then all of a sudden it's been 1 or 2 hours and the baby's not here, and that has been used more often than you can imagine to kind of coerce people into a cesarean,
Hmm.
like because now they're screaming in pain, right? Because they were their pain medication was taken away without consent, without knowledge. And then, they're having a hard time wrapping their brains around how to push with these new sensations without any other tools in their toolbox, because they still can't get out of
Yeah.
bed, even if you have the epidural turned off,
Hmm.
because you're still numb.
Yep.
And then it's like, well, who wouldn't say at that point,
Mm-hmm.
you know, well, we can just do a surgery. The baby's not coming. It's been 2 hours,
Hmm.
and now, I would counsel anybody that felt, um, to second guess anybody that's just telling you right off the bat to turn an epidural off at the
Yeah.
beginning of pushing, because most people can push out a baby with an epidural, even if we have to turn it down a little bit, but with
Hmm.
some patience and some expert coaching from your nurse or doula. If your choice was an epidural, because that's a valid choice, um, you know then we can help you still have that comfort while
Hmm.
you're pushing. It might take you a little longer. That's a trade-off we talk about in class. But so, just kind of want to throw that
Yeah.
out there, because I'm sorry that happened. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that was probably the worst part was, I mean, I remember there being a moment where I just like put my hands over my face and I was like, I quit. Like
Mm.
I can't, because when you push, it hurts
Yep.
and you don't really want to push, like, or at least, I don't know, with my third baby, I wanted to push. But being stuck in that bed, who knows? Now looking back, maybe she was a little OP. Who knows? I don't know. It was just painful. All I remember was this really sucks and like I give up. And I mean, my doctor, she really was great. She did, she she looked right at me and she was just like, you can do this. Like, you can do this. We're not gonna, you can't give up now. The baby's right here. I remember there was this point when she was like, reach down, feel your baby's head. There she is. Like, she's right here. You got this. And I probably pushed for like a few more minutes after that and she came. But it was that one point of like,
Mm.
especially, I mean, overnight, that's the worst part, I think, of labor is like when you're up all night and then you're
Yeah.
exhausted and you're like, oh no, now I have to push a baby out. Like I haven't slept in 2 days. How
Mm-hmm.
can I do this? So, but she did come right out and she was healthy. She was crying right away. Um, it was awesome. Everybody was happy. Um, and then everyone left.
Mm-hmm.
That was ridiculous.
That's common
So
though. That's common.
everyone else was
Yeah.
tired from being up
Sure.
with me all
Mm-hmm.
night. And so they were all like, bye, peace. We're going to go sleep. And I'm left with this little new thing.
Mm.
And then my mom's whole family, like it was 7:30 in the morning when she was born. So my mom's whole family like visited me all day in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Which was like cute and nice, right? Like they're trying to do what they think is right. But I'm like on this like adrenaline high of like not sleeping and um So anyways, later on that night came the crash around like
Right.
probably midnight or 2 in the morning somewhere. I called my mom hysterical,
Mm,
crying from the hospital because I was alone with this little
mm,
baby and she would not go in that bassinet.
mhm.
Like she wanted to be on my chest on
So no
me.
one
She
was
was
staying
fine.
overnight with you in the hospital
No.
even? Oh my
No,
gosh.
I was alone.
Oh.
Um And there were good nurses, there definitely were, but there, they would my mom was like, "Call the nurse, that's what they're there for, they'll help you." And so the nurse would come in and she'd swaddle the baby all up, get her quiet in her bassinet, and then she'd bring the baby back into me in the bassinet. And it was like my daughter smelled me instantly, which now I know, yeah, she did. She's like,
Mhm.
"I smell my mother, and that's where
Mm.
I wanna be." But they weren't too keen on like me sleeping in the bed with the baby, right after she was born. So I'd fall asleep with her on my chest, and the nurse would come in and be like, "You can't do that. We gotta put her back in the bassinet." So the first 24 hours was like exhausting and pretty emotional and felt really alone.
So
So
Yeah.
first
you
piece
brought
of
up,
advice is always have someone stay with you whenever
I was
possible.
just going to say that exactly. Yep. That's a huge thing I see when I worked maternity, um, pre-COVID, even the woman, the birth giver would send their partner home.
Oh,
Like,
no.
oh, the nurses are here to take care of
No.
me. And, especially like post C-section, like
Oof.
you can't be left alone.
Mm-mm.
So don't plan on sending your support person home. Anybody that's pregnant listening, even if find a plan for the dogs, find a plan for the other children, find a plan, even if your partner has to go home for the other kids. And I know with COVID this is tricky, but having somebody else come and stay with you, right? Because it is so overwhelming and exhausting to recover from a birth that happened only hours before, and you know have to also 24/7 take care of and feed this baby with no help. The nurses are there, even the most supportive, even if you were the only patient that she had on the floor, she can't be in there 24/7, grabbing your chapstick that's just 2 millimeters too far away, like, and that's the stuff that makes
Yeah.
a big difference at
Yeah.
the end of the day. So, all
Mm.
right. So when you
So
get
true.
home postpartum, were you living with your parents? What was it like navigating new motherhood as a teen? What was most challenging? Any thoughts on that?
Living at home with my mom. Um, I was lucky enough to have like seen my mom breastfeed all my younger siblings, so I didn't know anything else. I just breastfed my baby. And she was awesome. She just latched right on and we co-slept. She had it. I'm trying to think back. Like she did have a crib, but I think pure like laziness was like, if we're waking up every hour and a half at night, you're just gonna lay next to me and we're just gonna keep the boobs out, right? So um that part seemed pretty easy. What got difficult was like all of the sudden, I mean, I was working up until like the day I gave birth, I was working as a bartender, and then all of the sudden it was like, oh, I don't have that stream of income anymore. Right. So even though I'm living at home with my mom, I still have like my own needs. My mom had 5 other kids at home. And
Hmm.
so that was honestly probably the hardest part was the financial aspect of it. Um, Ed had told me, I think when my daughter was about 3 weeks old, he said, don't feel bad. You can go and like get assistance. You can just go and apply for welfare and like, you need to be with your baby and it's okay. And so I went to the DTA office and went to apply for assistance and for food stamps and stuff. And at that time I had found out that, you know, the other guy was not her dad and that it was this other guy. And I really only knew his first name. I didn't really know a whole lot about him. And so when I went to the welfare office, there was a special person for like teen moms to go talk to. And I went to go talk to her and do the application. I had the baby with me. And the lady was like super upset that I only knew the dad's first name.
Hmm.
And she actually made a comment to me along the lines of like, well, what kind of girl are you if you don't
Oof.
even know who like your kid's dad is? And I just remember, like, I still get upset thinking about
Mhm.
it now because I remember looking over on her desk in her cubicle and I saw a picture of like it must have been her son in his Marines uniform. And I looked right at her and I was like, you know what? Before I got pregnant, I was probably sworn into the same platoon as your son that's sitting right there on your desk. And so, like, for you to question my integrity and to say, like, what type of a person am I? Like, you don't even know me. And it kind of got a little heated, and
Good
I
for
ended up
you.
Yeah,
walking out
that's
of,
badass.
yeah. So I was 18 years old. Like, I kind of am like, wow, I'm glad I did this.
Yeah.
So I walked out of that office and I was like, I am never going to be on assistance or depend on anybody. Like, I just like was like, I won't be degraded and like be made a statistic. Like, no. And my daughter was born in April. So I worked at this Mexican restaurant in Cambridge and um, she was born April 5th. And on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, I went back to work.
Wow,
Wow.
4 weeks
And
later.
yeah, and my mom and my sisters babysat for me, and I just worked. I probably worked like every weekend, you know, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I probably worked some Thursday nights, but I was mostly like home with my daughter during the day, and then I just went right back to work. Um, but I would say definitely that was probably the hardest part was like navigating the whole financial thing. Like, what do I do with my baby? And I don't want to put her in daycare and like go work at like Target, you know?
Mhm.
Um, that just didn't even seem feasible either because I had
Right.
already been bartending and making half decent money, like doing that. Um, and another huge challenge was when I was in high school, I was I had to complete summer school in order to actually get my high school diploma because my senior year I skipped like 42 days of school. So
Hmm.
they were pretty pissed at me. I like didn't do good grades all year and then I'd get A's on my finals and they'd be like, this girl. I mean, looking back now, I'm like, well, I probably needed to be like in a different learning environment.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Um, but so I was supposed to stay in summer school and you couldn't miss a single day or that was it. You don't get your diploma. And I missed the last 2 days because I found out I was pregnant. So I never got my diploma. So after my daughter was born, actually, while I was pregnant, I went back to the high school and was like begging them. I was like, I'll do anything. Just let me come back. I'll make up the days, I'll make up the work. But like before my baby's born, I need a diploma. Like I can't just not have my high school diploma. And they wouldn't let me come back to school.
Wow.
Wow.
And so I ended up getting my GED when she was like 3 months old. Um,
Good for you.
yeah, I just went and took the test. And now, after everything I've done, like, I feel like it was so degrading to have to like
Mhm.
do something like that, right? Like, I scored super high on my MCAS. Like, I always was a really good student, but I just hated being in school, honestly. And so I had to go and take like get my GED, and then I'm sitting there thinking like I'm this teen mom with like a baby daddy who wants nothing to do with this kid. Um, I don't have my high school diploma. I'm living at home with my mom. Like, what's going to happen to my life? Who the
Right.
Hmm.
heck am I even going to become? Who is ever going to want to marry me
Hmm.
or be with me? You know, like all these horrible
Yeah.
thoughts. Um,
And
it was,
society's not doing a good job of lifting you up either.
No,
And you're
no.
asking,
no,
you're being proactive and you
yeah,
were you were a badass with like your attitude and like I'm going to do this and still society wasn't
yeah,
giving you a lift.
yeah. It was like pretty shitty to be felt like feeling stuck there. So especially now, like I look back and I'm like, those are the kids that I want to help. And as
Right.
a doula, those have been my favorite clients and the ones that like I will happily like even this to now my husband will kill me if he hears me say this, but I would like there is a teen in labor or a teen pregnant person that like needs me right now. I'm like, I'm here. I'm here. Like we got this. I'll be
Yep.
there for you.
Yep.
Um, because that's I feel like that's kind of what I maybe what I needed, right? Was
Mm,
just like somebody that knew a little more than I had. And maybe somebody that wasn't family, somebody that was like an outsider. I guess I could say that her name's Grandma Terry. She was kind of doula-ish to me, right?
mhm.
Because she was there for me. Um, but yeah, being a teen mom and especially like a single teen mom is just really hard. It's really
And, I'm sure there are
Mm.
some listeners that, might hear your story and think good for her for pulling herself up by her bootstraps and not taking any assistance. Nobody should, right? Because there's definitely that sect
Mm,
of people, right?
mhm,
But
yeah.
I hear your story and I'm pissed
mhm.
because here's a perfect situation in which you are a scrappy person. You are going to get stuff done. You are a hard worker. You do pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but your baby and you were also robbed of recovery time and bonding time 4 weeks after birth. You don't even separate a dog from their puppies at that point,
Mm.
right? Because that welfare worker had to judge a book by its cover, right?
And
I'll
she
tell
was
you what.
assigned to teenagers too. You said that was her
Yeah.
special
I'd
job.
love to meet her today.
I mean, growing up, my mom is one of the most incredible people that I have ever met. And she is one of the most hardworking, intelligent, creative people I've ever met. Like I said, got pregnant with me at 18, got pregnant with my sister 2 years later, got divorced when she was 21. And we had to move back in with my grandparents. Those were some of my best years. Honestly, I left to live with my grandparents and my uncle Ron and my mom. Like, this was awesome. I'm sure it was hard for her in 1,000 ways living with your parents, going, raising your children. But my mom worked 3 jobs. She was like a manager at McDonald's. She delivered papers and she like waited tables.
Mm.
And um we had WIC. I remember, the WIC checks back then. It wasn't a card.
I
And
did
we
get
were not,
WIC. I
we,
was
yeah,
eligible for that.
that's good. We weren't on welfare, but we lived within our means and we didn't have a lot of extra, but we always had what we needed. And then my mom ended up meeting my stepdad and they got married when I was 7, my sister was 5. And I always joke with my dad because he was I call my stepdad my dad, but he was 27 when they got married about ish. And when I turned 27, I was like, Dad, what were you thinking? Because
Yeah.
this is before I had kids. And he was like, listen, all I had to say is I didn't just fall in love with your mother. I fell in love with all 3 of you, which is like, oh my God, my mom
Yeah.
and her 2 little blonde daughters. But yeah, there was nothing, yeah, my mom happened to get pregnant young. She also didn't get comprehensive sex education. She also
Mm,
didn't have access to birth control. There was also a lot of stigma being part of a small town and a Catholic family with even telling people that you're pregnant. You can have an abortion, but you can't be pregnant. And you can't have sex, but you can't have, contraception if you choose to. There's nothing about my mother's character that was, bad because she happened to get pregnant. It's funny to me in nursing, people tell you some intimate things,
mm,
and there are people that on the outside would never, speak out against abortion and then call me up for advice about having an abortion. There are
mm,
people that can say this and that about public assistance and Medicaid, and then be actually receiving those benefits. And you can't judge a book by its cover. Like I said, being a hot mess is not relegated to one age group. there are
It
there are
happened to
some people.
anyone.
It can happen to anyone. And so yeah, I'm just really upset. I'm upset that yes, kudos to you for being, as amazingly dedicated, determined, hardworking, to provide in the way you needed to for your family, but also like shame on her. Shame on her for judging and not finding a way to lift you up and help you bridge
Mm.
that early newborn, early postpartum timeframe, so that you could be even stronger in going back into the workforce and whatnot. So I'm off my soapbox. I'm off my soapbox.
think too, like I mean, even today, because like I said, I did work in public housing also. And so just to navigate these systems is hard for an educated 30-year-old that, like, I don't know, maybe left their husband, even like, in like a domestic violence situation or something,
Sure.
right? And
Mm.
they have all the tools and they know what to do and everything. The system is extremely hard for even them to navigate and to get answers and to, I mean, we have a huge like housing crisis as it is, but to be somebody who's younger and who maybe might not know as much, we might, as young parents, we can be fairly educated and mature, right? So we can know things, but we probably don't know how to like navigate like the welfare system or what could be available to us for help. So I did learn with WIC, like that's one thing too. I was fully breastfeeding, but I needed formula when I went to work. And I couldn't afford the formula, like, to actually, like, the amount that I needed to actually go to work that WIC was giving me. So if I told WIC, like, yeah, I'm breastfeeding, they would only give me, I think, like 2 cans of formula a month, even if I told them
Wow.
I'm breastfeeding and half, right? So I had to lie to WIC and tell
Wow.
them, no, I'm 100% formula feeding. And even then, it was only enough formula for when I wasn't there.
Huh.
So I can't imagine like being a teen mom that really was 100% formula feeding.
There are barriers to teens, breastfeeding and pumping and whatnot, right? If the WIC office is saying, we'll take this formula just in case because we know the barriers to you as a teen parent trying to breastfeed, even if that's like an altruistic like motivation, like what's that saying is like your breast milk isn't enough, right? Like it's kind of shooting you in the foot in a way, or
Mm.
like that you can give
Some
this and it won't affect your milk supply or whatever.
Get them a better breast pump, like not
Right.
the free one that comes with insurance, and teach them, like, do more breastfeeding education, right? Like, teach them this is what we can do to increase your supply. Why are you having trouble pumping? Are you having trouble pumping because you're at school all day and they're not providing you a place to pump? Is it just embarrassing? Would it be helpful for us to like have the nurse call you out of class so it doesn't look like you're asking to leave? I mean, there's all kinds of ways that like we can be more helpful
Mm.
and just kind of maybe make it a little less awkward and hard on these younger moms. Um, or at least just provide them with the information, right? And say like, hey, we could do this for you, we can do that for you, these are all the ways we can help you, and ultimately it's your choice.
So, Caitlin, knowing that, there are these barriers that people are facing and that not everybody, is, as knowledgeable and proactive as they can be about what teen parents face and how they can help them, how, as a teen parent, would you recommend you go about advocating for yourself? Any suggestions?
Yeah, find yourself a free doula. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really utilized the Teen Health Center in Cambridge. It was connected to my nurse's office in high school, and then I moved to Everett. They didn't have one, so I kept going back to Cambridge. Everett does have one now, and there's some awesome people that work there too. I literally went in there a year ago before COVID and saw the lady that was like at the front desk and told her all about nursing school, and like she was like crying, hugging me. She's like, I
Oh,
like, they want to see the good stories, right? They want to
Yeah.
see people come back and be like, it's okay, we got this. Um, but yes, so for teens, like, you look for the resources. I mean, they all have cell phones now, right?
Mm.
yeah.
I did not. Did I have a phone? I had. paid phone that you couldn't even like Google stuff on.
Mm.
So I
Right.
had to like go to the library to look up information. So there's so much information on like Google, you know, you can go on Google, but on social media, you can connect with amazing people, right? That's how me and Melissa connected
That's
was,
right.
right? Listen to
Exactly.
the evidence-based birth podcast, find
Mhm.
podcasts to listen to. You
Like
know, you
Babies in
can,
Common show.
yeah, you can learn so much just from using your phone. And go to an awesome childbirth education class. Find somebody, set up a GoFundMe on your social media, be like, I want to take this childbirth class and it costs X amount of dollars. Help me go there. I'm a teen mom.
Right,
I
but if you
guarantee
reach out to
you.
the childbirth educator, they might say, "Oh my god, you can
True.
come for $10." Like,
Right.
Yeah, Jeanette and I
Right.
give
yeah,
discounts for our classes. And I'll
huge.
also
Yeah.
say if you're not,
Even
you know,
bigger
we're
for teenagers that we don't even publicize.
right. We are virtual now because of COVID, but at one point we won't be. And so wherever you are in the country, I another avenue to do is not only reaching out to independent childbirth educators, which we've talked about benefits of those over
Mm.
hospital-based education, but still many hospital-based education offices, if you ask your doctor or nurse practitioner or the nurse in the office that you're seeing or midwife, or you go on the website and click on hospital education and click on the email address that's linked to that, and you email the education department directly and say, I'm somebody that really wants to take class and I just don't have it within my means. It's never publicized or almost never publicized, but most hospitals will make exceptions and give like scholarships or reduced rates or whatnot for people in different social situations. So in the one hand, you might be thinking, well, I don't want a handout, right? But on the other hand, like we're paying so much money to these hospitals anyway to have our babies there.
Yeah.
On the other
Right.
hand, if you can find an independent person, we might actually hook you up with all sorts of lots of other fun donations for you
Well, that's the
from
thing
the
too. And there's
community.
also the whole baby shower, right? Like asking
Mhm.
people for money for your doula or for a childbirth class to putting a lot of people are doing, everything's changing from when even I had my first 8 years ago, which is not that long ago, but people are doing these baby registries where it's like a certain website that can take things from all different websites, right?
Mhm.
I've seen these. And people are, even putting books, right? Or DVDs like
Mhm.
on those websites too, uh, book recommendations and whatnot. So think outside the box. If you don't give people ideas about what to buy, you're just going to get 1,000 billion onesies,
Oh
right?
my
And
gosh.
there's
Yep.
anybody listening that has kids knows that half of the clothes you got for your baby shower didn't fit when you thought they were going to fit anyway. So, register for more than just clothes. You can always get those secondhand.
You were saying that you were breastfeeding. So, and you had your mom as a supporter and you had seen her breastfeed your siblings as well. What other types of things would you say you'd recommend for teen parents who are expecting or who just had a baby about breastfeeding?
I would say try to find somebody else who has breastfed recently and talk to them. My best friend got pregnant while I was still pregnant with my daughter, and she ended up breastfeeding her son like solely because she's like, well, you're breastfeeding your baby, so I'm gonna breastfeed my baby. And you know, like I think I also just kind of showed her like it doesn't have to be that hard. I mean, of course, there's many challenges in breastfeeding for many different reasons and many different people, but if you can find somebody that can teach you a little bit about it. I was really taught until I actually started teaching breastfeeding classes and childbirth classes. Um, the only education I really had on breastfeeding was from my mom and my aunt, and they were just like, "You just put the baby on your boob, and the baby knows what to do." And like,
Which
it's just
happens, but
easy.
not all the
That's just
time.
right. But that's kind of like what I knew, and that's my mom breastfed twins. She had um, baby number 4 and 5 were twins.
Wow.
So um, reach out and like see if you can attend a breastfeeding class or maybe go to like your local, if there's a teen health center or even the nurse's office in your school might have some information on some good people to connect you to. Um, and just try and educate yourself. But most importantly, like know that if you want to breastfeed, you can. You know, there are people, there are, and I'd say it's probably more rare than not that there's moms that like really, really want to breastfeed and it just doesn't work at all, right? Like there might be some little bumps that we have to navigate and stuff, and it might be a little uncomfortable at first. Baby might need to learn to latch a little better. Um, Maybe you're just sitting like this, your back
Leaning
hurts,
forward,
right?
yeah.
So maybe you just need a really comfy spot. And so like if you want to breastfeed, you can do it. You know, your body is made for this. Have some confidence in yourself and have some confidence in your baby. You're gonna make enough milk. So many moms are so afraid of that, and it's hard because right, you can see it in the bottle and you're feeding your baby a bottle and you know how much they're
Mm.
getting, and your baby will tell you when they're hungry. And so if you can kind of connect and get a little bit of support, because that's like needed, and get a little bit of information, and then also trust the process and trust that like your baby knows that it wants food and your body knows you just had a baby, and like all these things are going to come together and they're going to work out. And then guess what? If it doesn't work out and it's horrible and you hate it, or you're not making enough milk, or there's some medical things going on, whatever it may be, you can choose to go to formula, and that's totally fine too.
And it's
But
not all or nothing, right? You know,
Right.
right, you can
like you did.
totally
You
do.
you
I
worked and
did,
used some formula, yeah.
yeah. I used to, you know, I'd be at work like I don't think I even had a pump. I just like
Wow.
would get super engorged at work and be like, oh my God, I need to squeeze my boob
But you
out.
were a bartender, so that worked well for you.
It did. It definitely did.
I know. I don't miss the
I miss
pain of my full postpartum boobs, but I
Mm.
do miss the size.
right? I know. That was the nice thing. But no, I think definitely like just find some support and just know that if that's what you want to do, it's totally like you can totally do it. And you don't have to like hide. I mean, if you don't want to breastfeed in front of people, that's totally fine. But you know, you don't need to like isolate yourself because you're breastfeeding. Tell your friends, tell one of your best friends, listen, I'm going to breastfeed my baby. Can you look some information up with me? Like, I don't want to feel awkward. I'm kind of nervous about this. Like, would you be my support? If you don't know
Mhm.
anybody that has breastfed, grab your best friend and be like, I need you for this. Can you help me? Like, will you be kind of my support person?
Mm.
I think that's
And
great.
yeah.
I think too, you know, like the breastfeeding group that I have done for a long time, you know, I've had a few. I don't know that I've had any. Well, I don't know if I've had like maybe like a 19-year-old, but definitely like some people who were like 20, 21, 22. And they divulged to me later that they were nervous about coming because they figured they'd be in a room with all these older moms, which was true. But one of the things that I always found powerful, and these parents agreed with me, was that, you know, being a parent of a new baby is an equalizer in many ways.
Absolutely.
And when you're in that room talking about, and now it would be virtually for the moment, right? But like if you just had a baby and you're struggling with breastfeeding, or you're struggling with bottle feeding, or you're struggling with sleep, and you're struggling with this or that, we're all going through it, you know? And everybody's advice and everybody's experiences and their commiseration is all going to be helpful. And it's okay. And actually the older moms, even if they're like 5 or 10 years older, are going to be like, dude, you're amazing. Like
Oh,
they're
yeah.
more excited that you're like a teenager and like you're doing this. I don't feel like the group of people that I know anyway that come to my groups over the years, like they're not like judgy, like, oh, who are you having a teen mom? That's horrible. I would think that they would be welcoming and loving, and they always were for those younger moms that we had in the groups. So,
I agree. Parenting in many ways is the great equalizer. No matter your age, becoming a parent, especially if you're the one that has gone through labor and birth and breastfeeding, your body is changing in so many ways. And in a way, you are not the same person that you were before you got pregnant and had this baby. You're kind of like, a new version of yourself. And that's hard to do if you are like a confident
Mm.
person, well-established older person. If you are an adolescent and you are, just trying to figure out who you are, and then something like having a baby happens and you're like, well, who am I? My heart goes out to, definitely an extra special challenge. But remember that not every awkward thing about being a parent is going to be related to the fact that you're a teenager. There are so many awkward things about
Right.
parenting that happen no matter the age, right? You're going to have awkward boob moments and awkward vagina moments and awkward, just like kid moments and awkward relationship moments. And it's like, awkward self moments. And it's not just because you're a teen. Like it's kind of there are some things that are universal.
Don't rush through all those moments. It's okay as a teen when you all of a sudden are shoved into the identity of like being a mom, right? Because for so long, that's all I could identify as was like, okay, I'm this mom now. And you have so much time later in life. It's amazing. It's like a gift, right? So now my kids are older, and sometimes I'm like, hey, like I wish I had another baby. Like now I have to have this different identity, right? So there's so much time that like you can evolve and grow and just become who you were meant to be. You don't have to be the teen mom that like struggled or this or you know you're gonna blossom, you're gonna have your time, and enjoy the time with your baby, enjoy the time with your kids. Like don't feel so rushed, to like I feel like I rushed through a lot with when my kids were little. Like I still felt this pressure to go to school and to finish because I had started taking prereqs when my son, who's 11, I started taking the prereqs when he was probably like 9 months old, and my daughter was like 2.5. And I failed out of my first semester of college because what was I thinking? I had a 2.5-year-old and a 9-month old. Like it was crazy. Um, and now I look back and I'm like, it's because it wasn't my time.
Right.
I had to go, I had to move to South Florida. I had to get that experience. Who knows what kind of nurse I would have been had I not had all the life experience that I have now, and in my classes with like my fellow classmates, they're always like, what are your other degrees in? And I'm like, nothing. Life.
Life.
Like,
you're just
the school of hard knocks.
So smart. Like you're so full of all this information. Like where do you learn all this stuff? And I'm like, it's just life. This is like what I've absorbed, So having a baby as a teenager is totally not like an end all either, because that's kind of how I felt. I felt like this was the downward, slump of my life. And it's hard to get out of that. So if you are a teen mom and that's how you feel, like just know you're not going to be there forever. Be where you are, give it all you got, and things are going to change. They're always changing.
I think that's
chill.
That's a good kind of final thought for all people, being that like just because you're a teen mom, just because you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 doesn't mean that you can't do new things, try new things, have a new life, have a new career, have another baby, and that's really awesome.
That's
I
awesome.
love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Glad I got to talk to you guys.
Yes, thank you for coming on our show.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We hope everybody's enjoyed today's conversation, and we hope you'll tune in again. And remember that Babies in Common is a community for you because, after all, we all have babies in common.